Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode this season of the Rangers Academy review. I'm joined, of course, by Academy expert William Irwin. William, how are you?
A bit hot, to be honest. And if anybody hears any gunfire in the background, it's just my neighbour. He's putting on a new roof and he's hot and he's got a nail gun. So it is Paisley, but I don't think there is actually any gunfire going on in the background, for what I can tell.
Nobody's going to believe that it's a nail gun in Paisley. Nobody's believing that.
See, what's quite scary is he's only about 10 feet away from this window. So if he fired one of them at the window, it might well take me out.
Probably would, and it's Paisley, so that's a possibility.
Absolutely.
Loads and loads that we've got here to cover, William, so we will jump straight into it. We have discussed it before, but we'll discuss it again. Obviously, Craig Mulholland leaving as Academy Director and Zeb Jacobs coming in. Obviously, that's not new news. Yeah. But there's not been that many games in terms of, the best versus best or the under-18s in the league. But have you seen much difference in the way that Zeb's running the academy? Is he different in any way to Craig Mulholland? Has the processes changed, or has everything kind of basically stayed the same?
I mean, just looking from what we get to see, it doesn't look as though a huge amount's changed. It's maybe changed a bit for the players in-house. It's maybe changed a bit for the parents who are in contact with Zeb and the things that happen within the club. But like from our point of view, not really. We're still getting access to the games. And anytime I've contacted Zeb, he's been good enough to kind of get back to me. Whether that's been just checking for access or if a game's still on, etc. He's been good that way. I mean, it might be that over the course of this season we will, notice changes. Obviously, Zeb's a good bit younger than what Craig was. Maybe his way of doing things is going to be different coming from a different country. But I think only time will tell on that. And at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure Zeb will be judged a bit like what Craig Mulholland was and how many players make it into the first team over his tenure. But we'll need to wait and see because obviously he's literally just in the door.
I mean, for myself and, most supporters who don't know a lot about what goes on in the background in the academy, and basically we just judge on, like what you said, what players make it into the first team. That's basically the barometer. What can Zeb do differently, do you think? What can he change at the academy that Craig Mulholland maybe wasn't doing, or try something that Craig Mulholland didn't try? Is there much scope for change?
I think there is always scope for change. I think obviously one of the interesting things is they're going to this tournament in Eindhoven. I think they've obviously flown over today. The tournament starts tomorrow. Sounds like that tournament's quite different in terms of how much the ball's going to be in play. In terms of maybe like the kind of format of the tournament's going to be different. So I suppose change is a good thing. I'm obviously a bit older. I don't really like change now in my life. I like stability. But I think possibly in football terms, it's not a bad thing. I think, potentially looking at ways of improving young players in different ways, whether that's doing more technical work, whether it's kind of different styles of coaching. I say like Zeb comes from a different background from most coaches in Scotland. So it will be interesting to see how things change over the months that Zeb's here. But I think in all honesty, just like everything else at Rangers Football Club, will be judged on how the team performs on the pitch and how many players make it into the first team. I know people say that's harsh, but I mean, that is the reality of being an academy director. There's a lot of money gets spent on the academy. So if players don't make that step up to the first team, then everything starts to point towards the person that's in charge. And obviously, Craig Mulholland was under that same pressure that Zeb's now under.
And maybe under a little bit less pressure now at Nottingham Forest, because I don't think they're really that academy driven. I think they're more, let's buy 600 players and hope 5 of them work. That's the way that it seems to look at Nottingham Forest anyway.
Look, it's different. I mean, everywhere that has academies different. I think Nottingham Forest has been renowned for bringing through academy players. But now when you're in the top flight of the Premier League in England, are you going to throw a 17, 18-year-old kid in there that's going to be special, or are you going to go and spend £20 million on a Brazilian international, a Spanish international? I mean, we don't have that kind of finance up here, so you just hope that if somebody is exceptional and they're good enough, then they'll get their chance. I mean, obviously, in the last year or so, we've seen guys like Zach Lovelace, like Bailey Rice, we've obviously had Alex Lowry, we've had Leon King, we've had Adam Devine. So players have had a chance. They've maybe just not been able to remain in and around that first team as much as they would like. But it'll be interesting, maybe against Morton at the weekend, we will see one or two of those players depending on injury and obviously selection, depending on how the manager looks ahead to the PSV game, which is obviously not long after the Morton game.
Yeah, true. I think Kevin might be in Australia. Morning. Sid's in Toronto. And we've got William who just says, well, gents. Not having a flaky, Martin, but are we realising Bonner doesn't deserve the nonsense Bears are flinging at him? Let's move on. Sid, this is the Academy review. We don't speak about the first team. This is just purely the Rangers Academy review.
Although it has to be said that Bonner is playing well at the moment. I mean, I will say that I think Bonner, which I like 3 assists in his last 3 games.
Yeah, he's playing well.
Yeah, I think as I posted yesterday on social media, and it obviously caused a bit of a thing. It's like there's no patience these days when it comes to players coming in. Or everybody just expects everything to be perfect. But look, that's the world we live in now, and it's the same at every level of the game.
Once people have made their mind up, especially on a player who's been at the club for a number of years, once the minds are made up in the majority, they don't really seem to change. Let's be honest. And we've got a good evening as well from CGA. I hope you're well. Please get your comments, by the way, and your questions in the comments. And I'm pretty sure William, because I won't be able to answer them, but I'm pretty sure William will. Before we're going to touch on the 18s first, William, but just before we do, because we're going to obviously cover the B team in a bit more detail. At the start of the season in the first team, Jean-Louis Waifeko got a bit of a run out in the pre-season games. Was that a surprise for you going on? And I'm not having a go at Jean-Louis in any way, but just on the forum that he maybe showed in the B team, was it a surprise that he was the one who was chosen, maybe more out of necessity with the amount of injuries we had at centre back? Yeah. But was it a surprise that it was Jean-Louis that got the nod?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that. Yeah, I mean, I think possibly Jean-Louis, what he has is he can cover left back and centre back, and I think that's a benefit to him. But yeah, I think it was a surprise at the time. He certainly did okay in the couple of games that I saw him in. I didn't see much of the game over in Germany, I have to be honest. I only seen kind of fleeting highlights of that because I was up at the training ground watching an academy game at that point. But look, I think the thing from Jean-Louis' point of view, he's obviously did something to catch the manager's eye, and he's taken an opportunity to play, and he did okay. I think there was a bit of criticism after the Hoffenheim game, but that can happen. He's obviously since then kind of dropped back into play some B team games, and he obviously played against Stenhouse Muir the other night as well. So I think to be fair to Jean-Louis, he's probably not somebody that anybody that's maybe been to the academy games in the last year would have picked to maybe be in that first team. But look, at the end of the day, sometimes a manager will see something different. And as a fan myself, it's only my opinion. My opinion is not as important as Michael Beale's or any of his coaching staff. And they've obviously seen something in Johnny, obviously, that they liked, and that's why they took him away for pre-season. And obviously in the games at Ibrox, there was praise for him, which was nice to see. Obviously, I think he's another one that's out of contract at the end of the season, so it'll be interesting to see where the club go with that, if they renew or if they allow him to move on to potentially play first-team football somewhere else.
Right, we've got about 6,000 questions on the B team, right? So can I just say to everybody watching, I will come back to all those comments and we'll go through them one by one. But we'll just touch quickly on the under-18s then, William, because I'm very, very conscious that it's very, very difficult to be. I mean, it's great to praise, but it's extremely difficult to be critical, especially a boys at that age. But there's been a few changes in the 18s. Cameron Campbell obviously no longer the manager. So keep us up to date then. Tell us what's new management-wise at the under-18s.
Yeah, look, Cameron's basically moved into a kind of newly found position, which obviously we'll get into probably at another time because it's quite in-depth. We're hoping to have an interview with Cameron about it at some point, so maybe we'll just leave that for that. But Brian Gilmour's dropped down from the B team. He was obviously assisting Davy McCallum last year, so he's now, I think, the head coach, as it's now known. And Stephen Smith is obviously a coach as well, so they're the two that will oversee the 18s this year. But in reality, you know, how much actually changes other than the fact there's a new coach in there? Is he really going to change that much? I think that's the interesting thing we'll find out over this season. It is a young group. It's basically the whole under 16s for last year that have moved up. So yeah, look, we'll find out more as the season goes on, but hopefully it'll be a better season than last year, because I think it is fair to say that last year's under 18s probably didn't get to the levels that many of us thought they would do, and that was maybe the biggest disappointment last year, to be honest.
In terms of the players, then, has there been a big change? Because obviously, 9 times out of 10 at academy level, there always is quite big changes, because there's only so far you can go at the age range that you're in. But obviously, me and you were at the Dundee United game at the Rangers Training Centre. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you were saying this is quite a young 18s team.
Yeah, look, it's basically last year's under-16s team. So in the main, all these guys are 16 years old. I think there's still like a handful of players that are 17. But in the main, the whole group is 16. And there's been some 15-year-olds have obviously been in the 18s group as well. So that's been really nice to see. I think the important thing this season is probably having a wee bit more patience with the players. They're probably going to have their ups and downs, as we've seen in the opening 3 games. The Dundee United game was actually a really close game. I think we both agreed with that on the day. It probably could have went either way.
It's the best, William. It's the best that I've seen Dundee United play at the Rangers Training Centre. Obviously, I've been many times to the training centre, but I've also been many times to watch them play Dundee United, obviously, because my brother plays for Dundee United. But it's normally a scudding that Dundee United get when they go there. But it's the best I've seen them play. And I wasn't sure if that was because Dundee United have improved, or the fact that this is, you know, a relatively young under-18s team and it's just going to take them a little while to gel.
Yeah, well, I thought Dundee United played well. I don't think you should take away from the performance. I mean, on another day, Dundee United might have been able to steal a draw or a win, because obviously up until late in the game, it was only 1-0. And obviously the second goal for Chris was exceptional, wasn't it? It was some strike when he hit it. It just flew by the goalkeeper. He had no chance. But yeah, on the day, it probably could have went either way, especially when it was 1-0. It could have easily been 1-1. It could have been 2-1 to Dundee United. That was like, on another day, I say, it might have been different. Obviously, we then go to Motherwell and find myself 4-0 down at half time, and we obviously made quite a few changes to the starting 11 for that game, which was tough. You know, I'm not a big fan of too much rotation, but I understand when you've got like a 22, 23-man squad, you're going to rotate.
But Motherwell is, William, one of those tricky places to go at academy level. They run a decent academy at Motherwell. They bring through, you know, Bailey Rice, for example. That's where he came through. They run a decent academy, and it's always a tricky game.
Yeah, look, I mean, in all honesty, 4-0 was fair. At half time, we were all over the place. Our defensive positioning was poor. We were losing a lot of first balls, second balls. We weren't really creating a huge amount of opportunities. We just looked a wee bit naive, to be honest, and maybe that's why we're going to have points like that this season, where we just don't maybe perform on the day. The second half, I thought we showed a little bit more. We made some changes at half time. Jack Wiley moved inside, I think it was, from right back into centre back. Duncan Barlow come on. And I think we brought on Kerr Robertson for Callum Adamson, who I think took a knock to his shoulder. But that seemed to settle us down a wee bit. And we ended up winning the second half 2-1, but the final score was 5-2 to Motherwell. So, you know, we can't hide away from the fact it wasn't a good 45. The thing I liked about us was, in the next game against St Mirren, I thought we showed character. You know, it was only a few days later we had to play St Mirren at the training ground, and I thought we played really well. I thought we opened them up quite a lot. We played some really nice football. We scored some really good goals. We were unlucky not to score another couple of goals. So yeah, look, we've had 2 wins, we've had 1 defeat. We've got Hearts up next in the league, which I think is supposed to be next Friday at the Orium. So yeah, we'll wait and see what happens with that. But I think we will see a wee bit of inconsistency from the group at times this year. But I do think they are an exciting team to watch. And I think when we get going at that level consistently, I think we're capable of scoring quite a lot of goals with the players we've got going forward.
Yeah, especially young Finlay Curtis as well, who I've always maintained as a smashing player. Just before we move on to the B team, we should also point out that, you know, there was a pre-season cup, if you like, the Super Cup in in Northern Ireland for the 18s, which they went on to win.
Yeah, look, also they won their kind of section of it. It kind of breaks down into sections. So they were in the Premier section, that particular group. Unfortunately, in the group stage, we didn't do well enough. We drew 0-0 with St Kevin's. I think by all accounts, speaking to a few of the parents, we created a lot of chances. We just didn't score. The next game, we lost 2-1 to County Londonderry, which I think was hugely disappointing. Chris Eddie with that goal. In the remaining game in the group, we managed to win 3-0. Chris Eddie with a hat-trick. That kind of a lot of goals. And then we went out to the knockout stage into the Globe because it kind of breaks into sections at that point. So in the Globe semi-final, we won 4-2 against, I don't know how you pronounce this, right? I think they were a Japanese team. So it was Ikefuna. I think that's how you say it. That was 4-2. Chris Eddie got all 4. And then in the final, we beat County Tyrone 4-0. It was Harry Weir, Josh Gentles, and another 2 for Chris Eddie. So it was a pretty good tournament for Chris. And obviously, they won the final, Globe final, which was good for the boys, given maybe they hadn't started the tournament that well. So, I mean, overall, you can say it's not been the worst start to the season, but there's certainly tougher tests to come in the coming weeks. And I think that's when people will kind of look at it and, they'll judge the team over the season, because I think that's the right thing to do with it being such a young group.
Yeah. Your internet's went funny a couple of times, by the way, so I'm hoping and praying that it doesn't cut out. Because
it's probably to do with my next door neighbour with all that electrical stuff outside. He's probably doing something, mate. He's like Bob the Builder. He's always doing something.
I'm just hoping and praying that for at least the next 15 to 20 minutes your internet stays on, otherwise there's no show. But there we go. The B team, William, which I suppose is what most people, want us to talk about. There was rumours at the end of last season that David McCallum would be either moving on or moving upstairs.
Yeah.
He has stayed in his role as B team manager. Obviously Brian Gilmore moving down, like you said, to kind of be the head coach, manager, coach, whatever you want to call it, of the 18s. I don't know the names that Rangers come up with some of these things. So who's replaced Brian in the B team?
Basically, Malky has moved from the ladies team, and he's came to help David McCallum. I'm not too sure if it's still head coach and coach, or I'm not too sure of the wording of what Malky's actual role is, but it looks as though he's basically assisting David. Which obviously, that's 2 experienced guys at the helm of the B team. 2 guys that have been involved in football for a long time. So yeah, look, it'll be interesting. Yet again, I've had quite a lot of people ask me, what do you make of the whole best versus best compared to the Lowland League? The one thing we can't replicate is that it's not competitive, right? So if you're not playing for 3 points, do you find the same level of commitment, tackles, the ferocity of the games? I think in some of the games they've been good in terms of like the physical stuff. I think in other games they've been quite one-sided, and maybe it's not been what we would have wanted from it. But I think now that the English leagues are back up and running, it'll be interesting to see where we end up playing and who we end up playing over the coming weeks. At the moment, it seems to be like a kind of 1-2 week cycle of games, and that's
it's funny you say that. Ian Ross is trying to start a hashtag William, right? Don't start that, Ian. Don't start that. But he's asking, does the B team have a fixture list, or is it done on a game by game basis? So how does the best versus best work in terms of fixture creation?
I think basically the club have a rough idea of what they're going to do, right? But clearly, the longer that we're in the SPFL Trust Trophy, that then kind of moves things about a little bit, because we're now into the 3rd round against Alloa. So that obviously causes a problem. And then you've also got the other side of it, whereas if Rangers make the Champions League, Rangers get into the UEFA Youth League. Mm-hmm. So that's another 6 fixtures that officially are not on the schedule, but they could be come a week's time or 10 days' time. So I think there's stuff that's penciled in, but it's probably not put in pen yet because they don't know. I mean, there's talk that we're going to be playing Nottingham Forest at some point. Obviously because of the connection. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I would imagine we'll probably play some more tournaments abroad, like we're playing in this one in Eindhoven. I would imagine we'll probably travel to play some games as well, like kind of one-off games, maybe in Portugal or Belgium, maybe Spain, Germany. I think there will be a chance for those type of games. Clearly, they come at a cost. So I'd imagine there'll maybe be once a month or something like that. They might try and play that. And then in between that, I mean, there's been talk that we might play some first teams in Scotland, maybe from like League One, League Two. They might try and put kind of one or two of those games on if and when they can. But at the moment, mate, to be honest with you, there isn't a set fixture list. As soon as I get them, I tend to put them on the sort of WordPress that I use. And I try to add all the fixtures in there as much as I can. At the moment, we've had no further kind of update with regards to the next, like, a lot of fixtures. But hopefully we will find that out maybe in the next week or so. We are kind of asking the club for this information. But I think because obviously Rangers have made it through to the last qualifying part of the Champions League and we've made it through to the next round of the SPFL Trust Trophy, it probably means that fixtures are getting shifted about a wee bit. So I'd like to think that within the next week to 10 days, we'll have a more kind of guaranteed idea of where the games are and who we're playing against.
Oh, I just dropped something there, and I don't think that's went too well. If I'm being brutally honest with you, I was actually trying to do something on the fly there for everybody watching, but that didn't go too well. So I'll put this to you from CGM, and this was something that I was thinking about as well, by the way, especially with it, like you're saying, it's best versus best, but we don't know when the fixtures are going to happen. So CGM's worry is that this season, with no lone league games, the B team will be largely forgotten about. Now, will it be? That could be in two different scenarios. Largely forgotten about by the supporters, and I know that the club were trying their best to get folk last season to go to Dumbarton to watch the games. Obviously, it's a bit of extra revenue if more people go and watch the games, etc., etc. But also for Michael Beale, the manager, if these players aren't playing in, like you said, competitive football, if it's best versus best, that's all well and good. But is that going to affect their chances of getting first team football?
Well, if you listen to what the club have said out in public and what we've been told privately, the manager wanted this. The manager felt that playing against maybe like sort of under 21 teams, under 23 teams from England, we obviously played a Belgian first division team, like their actual proper first team down in Leicester. He thinks that these games are going to be better over the course of the season than what we were getting in the Lowland League. And what it also gives him is the opportunity to drop players in that need minutes. So if somebody like Tom Lawrence needs minutes, if Yanis Hadji needs minutes, if John McLaughlin needs those minutes, then clearly we can, sort of utilise those players at this level. Now, there isn't an age barrier, and that's something that I think we will look at over the season. I think at the moment we have, in the main, used kind of under 21 players. Apart from, I think, like obviously Kieran Wright and Robbie McCrory have obviously played some of the kind of best versus best games. But in terms of kind of outfield wise, you've only like Josh McPake, Ben Williamson, trying to think who else might have been there earlier on in the season, in the pre-season. There's that many names. It's been a bit of a kind of crazy period with the games because you're trying to kind of watch some of the games online and then you're trying to pick up the other games when you can't see them.
You want to tell him to put his nail gun down?
Oh, it's crazy, mate, isn't it? He's still got it, there,
Tim, now I don't know if this is a joke or not, because I don't know this name, and this might be embarrassing for me, the fact that I don't know this name, but Timothy Sharp's asking if Craig McPherson's still at the club.
Well, he was the guy that was involved in the ladies' team, wasn't he? When that incident happened in the Celtic game.
Oh, is that who? I didn't know his name. I didn't know his name.
I mean, I've certainly not seen him for a while at the training grounds, but as far as I'm led to believe, I mean, I don't know if he was ever dismissed by the football club, so he could just be doing something else. Yeah, he could just be doing something else within the club, but certainly it has been all very quiet, obviously, since that incident in the ladies' team. But yeah, I can't honestly say, because I haven't seen him at the training ground for a while, but he could well still be there doing something with maybe some of the younger academy groups.
And we'll come to some of the fixtures and some of the individual players, because Davey, channel member, wants to know what's happening with Josh McPake. We'll come to that as well, because that was when I was researching, and before we started here, he was a name that popped up just simply because of his age, William. So I want to come to him. But Ofra Hill, and it's actually a fair point that you make. He hadn't thought about the UEFA Youth League either, which is massive for these youth players because it gets you playing competitively against some of the best youth teams going. So, we're thinking about, we want to beat PSV simply just, we've all got our first team heads on. We want to get into the Champions League. But that game that we're going to play on Tuesday has massive effects for the football club and also for the B team.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Obviously, from a first team point of view, financially, it's absolutely huge. It's beyond any numbers that we would get in the Europa League. And for the academy, you're going to get to play 6 games against good opposition, 3 games at home, wherever that would be. It might be Broadwood, it might be at Partick's ground, it might be somewhere else. I don't know. I would imagine the club have got something in place just in case Rangers do go through, because clearly after those PSV games, the Champions League games kick in pretty quickly, so it wouldn't give you much time to have some. My first thought would be it's probably Broadwood. I think they'll probably play there. I know that's not everybody's ideal scenario playing on the Astro, but I get the feeling that's where they might utilise if they have to. Because I don't believe the training ground is allowed to be used for these games from what we were told last season, something to do with the floodlights or something like that.
Facilities, you've got to have certain facilities.
Yeah, so I know, yet again, I know it's not everybody's thing, but I think Broadwood would possibly be the place that we would utilise if we were to make it into the Champions League and the lads obviously played in the UEFA Youth League.
It certainly won't be Dumbarton. Anyway, we know that for sure.
Yeah, look, I mean, that was just disappointing. I mean, at the end of the day, it was a nice stadium. It was pretty easy to get to in the main, but clearly the surface just didn't hold up to playing games on it. Obviously, Dumbarton do play on it as well. You're playing maybe
Broomhill not playing on it this season as well.
Yeah, so you're probably talking about another 45, 50 games getting played on that surface this year.
Yeah,
and it just didn't hold up for us. I mean, it was basically covered in sand for the second half of the 2 seasons that we played on it, and it certainly didn't help our style of play and how we wanted to play the game, unfortunately.
No. The staff are lovely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mainly. Right, so the fixtures, right, there's been quite a few, actually, best versus best games, and there's a name that's going to pop up when we're talking about this, William, and he's not at the club at the moment. He's out on loan. And I'm pretty sure he will come up as a topic of conversation if the time allows us. But there has been, I'm just counting here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 best versus best. So we're not going to go through them all. We're just going to pick out some. But I'll read you out all the results in them just very, very quickly. So Rangers 2, Dundee 0. Rangers 5, Fleetwood 1. And that was Fleetwood's under 21s. Crusaders 1, Rangers 3. Bangor 0, Rangers 3. Laverne 4, Rangers 1. Rangers 3, Everton 0. Rangers 5, Burnley 3. Man City 3, Rangers 2. And Rangers 4, Blackpool 2. So all in all, with the games, William, the B team's been pretty successful.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think the 2 games in Northern Ireland were good. I think that's good for the players to go and play there. We've done that a few times now. And I think it's a decent level to play against as well. And I think that's one of the big things for the club, and they're not far away to travel over, to play in those games. Obviously, we weren't allowed access to the game against Leuven down at Leicester's training ground, so we didn't actually get to see that. I have since seen some of the highlights of the game. And also, you're playing against their first team, so it was a fantastic test for our young players. I mean, I think we were right in the game right up until about the 70th minute, and then I think obviously their experience, power, etc., just kind of took over the end of the game. The Everton game, I think it was a young Everton team, if my memory serves me right, but we played some nice football and scored some nice goals. The Burnley game was a bit more kind of back and forth. It was a bit like a basketball match. It never really felt like kind of either team were in full control. It was, and in the end,
we should state, William, that all the English teams, it's their under 21s.
Yeah, I mean, like, it depends. When you've seen some of the teams that have come up here in the past, for all those say it's under 21, sometimes it's 16 and 17-year-olds. So you're basically playing against under 18s. And a lot of the time, you're not getting like a like a team sheet with all the date of births on it, so you don't know. So you're trying to judge for yourself. But I think afterwards in that Everton game, we did find out that they were quite a young group. The Man City game, yet again, we weren't allowed access to that game for whatever reason. But I have obviously since seen some of the highlights, and the boys played some nice football in that game, and I think that's a good thing to get down there and play the way we did. The Blackpool game was actually quite a good game. We scored some really good goals, and we created a lot of chances. And to fair to Blackpool, they stood up to it. They were a kind of bigger physical team. I think they were maybe a little bit older than what Burnley and Everton were. But it's all the different types of tests that we've had. And even last season, obviously, we played against Liverpool, we played against Chelsea. I think we had Man United last year as well at one point. So, yeah, look, there's been a lot of games, and I think it'll be interesting to see where we end up over the coming weeks and against this level of opposition, because the better tests that we can get, the better it is for our players. And I know some people have obviously going to put it in the comments here about players going out on loan. I do think players will go on loan before the end of this month. That will just be interesting to see who it is that's going. Zach obviously come off against Stenhousemuir. It looked like he might have done a hamstring. So that might then stop the club allowing maybe like a James Graham to go out on loan or a Connor Young, because they're not going to have cover. And obviously Bailey Rice come off because I think he got kicked in the top of his foot. So I think he had to go and get that checked out. It sounds like it's not like a bad injury, so he should be okay. But yeah, again, if we were to lose one or two players before the end of this window, it might stop maybe one or two others going out on loan, because it would leave us very short in numbers, because we haven't, we've not really recruited for the B team. So like, the numbers are actually down on what they were last season.
They are. We'll talk about the SPFL Trust Trophy as well in a second, but I want to go through a few players and also for everybody watching, if you refresh and go into the description, the link is there for the RFC Youth Updates WordPress, and that gives you all the information that you have to know about the B team and the 18s. But if we're looking at the squad, William, and we're also looking at the fixtures that's being played, there seems to be the same names popping up time after time after time. So I'm talking Zach Lovelace, I'm talking Thompson and Shaka, not at the club anymore, out on loan. Alex Lowry, will come to him in a second. Bailey Rice and Josh McPake. Now, it was Davey, channel member, who was asking what's happening with Josh McPake. He's 21 now, William. Obviously, at that level, you don't get big, long contracts normally. So his contract is up next year. So whatever happens with the B team this season, it's a massive year for Josh.
Look, I think it's more important for getting Josh in the short window, because I don't think he'll be here after the end of this season.
He's scoring goals.
Yeah, he is, mate. And at the end of the day, see the quality of player Josh is. You expect him to score goals because he is an exceptional footballer. But for whatever reason, it's hard to put into words, because I've always thought Josh is a fantastic footballer. Since I first seen him as like a 16-year-old, I think it was, he just stood out. He had that power, he had pace, he took players on, he had so much confidence, he could score goals, create goals. He was just a huge player. So when he signed that long-term contract with the club and then went out and loaned to Dundee as a 17-year-old, I think everybody was excited. I think they thought Josh was the future, and it's, I don't know what you say, like, he sort of stagnated a little bit over the period, which is a huge disappointment, because Josh is a fantastic talent, and some of the goals he scored so far this season have been absolutely brilliant. I mean, the one he scored against Blackpool was a stunner. It was a great strike from the edge of the box, and then he scores a great goal the other night there against Stenhousemuir as well. So it's frustrating with Josh, because there's no doubt the ability's there. Absolutely no doubt whatsoever.
But it happens so often. I mean, Kai Kennedy, for example, he was another one a few years ago who was coming through.
Kai's sitting without a club. I mean, Kai's now sitting without a club, and we're in the middle of August. I mean, I didn't think that would have been the case for Kai. I really couldn't see it. And it's the same with like Robbie Ure. He's obviously sitting without a club at the moment as well. And I think in Scotland, there's obviously not a huge amount of money in Scotland. So it might be that these lads need to look at maybe going to America and maybe going somewhere else to play, because at the moment it feels like some of these kids are just not getting their opportunity in Scotland for whatever reason.
Well, I mean, that's what happens. That's what seems to happen at Rangers anyway. Ian Ross is asking, can you post the address for your site, please, William? Ian, if you refresh this page, it will be in the description and the link will be there for you to click if you just refresh the video. But please do come back. The Burnley game you mentioned, Alex Lowry got 2 in that. Now, I think it's only right that we do discuss him as, the Hearts game's going to kick off shortly. I know he's on the bench tonight. The right thing for the club to do, William, send him out on loan. Hearts a good club for him. He needs first team football. The first team has made a lot of new signings, especially in that midfield and attacking area. And I don't think it's worth him spending another season in the B team, is it?
Alex started the pre-season off really well. He was looking sharp. Some of his quality in the final third's outrageous. It really is. His ability to find that killer pass, to get into good positions, to score goals. His attitude was really good during pre-season. I thought he was really at it. And then also this opportunity to go to Hearts, it just seems like a good move for him. He's going to be playing at a club that's probably looking to push for third position, so they're going to be looking to win a lot of games of football. He's getting his opportunity to play in Europe. He obviously started the game over in Rosenborg. I think he's on the bench tonight by the looks of it, but I think they might have changed their shape a little bit. But look, there's no doubt in Alex's ability. We just need to get him out there and playing games, and hopefully that's what he gets at Hearts, because that can only be a benefit. I mean, see, if you're going to send a player out in Scotland, obviously you're not going to send him to Celtic, you're not going to send him to Aberdeen that often. So the next choice is probably Hearts, and that's where Alex has went. So it's a great opportunity for Alex to hopefully play 20, 25, 30 games over the course of the season, League and Cup, and we'll see where he is come the end of the season. Hopefully he's up there for Young Player of the Year, and then that would show that the club made the right decision to send him out on loan to Hearts, and he's vindicated, the decision of the manager to let him go out on loan.
We spoke to Craig Mulholland quite a few times, and Craig was very pragmatic in terms of, look, at Rangers you want to win, of course you want to win, but at youth level it's not always just about winning. That was Craig's mantra, and he also said that when you send players out on loan, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But even when it doesn't work, sometimes it can still be beneficial for the player. In terms of Alex going out on loan to Hearts, though, does it have to work for him in order for him to have a chance of getting into this Rangers team?
Probably. I would imagine if it doesn't go well at Hearts, it's going to be difficult for him to come back and break into our first team. As you've already alluded to, we've added a lot of players in that position. We've still got guys like Yanis Hadji, we've still got Tom Lawrence, you've now got Sam Lammers that can drop in there, you've got Todd Cantwell that can play in there. I'm probably missing some guys out just because we're obviously mainly talking about the academy, but yeah, look, it's extremely difficult. And this is the same problem for guys like Thompson Ashaka. It's the same problem for Zach Lovelace. It's the same problem for Bailey Rice. All of these guys need to keep pushing, improving, catching the manager's eye. And what I will say is, in quite a few of these games, the best versus best games, and even some of the under-18 games, Michael Beale has been in attendance watching the game. And if he's not been there, there's been Harry Watlin's been there, or there's been another member of staff that's been there as well. So it feels like there's always somebody watching. And now you've got Cameron Campbell in this role where he's obviously kind of in between the first team, the B team, and the 18s. So yeah, it's interesting to see how things work. And again, it's hard to judge at the moment, but we'll get to kind of see more over the course of the season.
And obviously, CJ is asking, did we offer you a new deal? As far as I'm aware, William, Robbie, you're no longer at the club.
Yeah, well, my understanding is that Robbie was offered a contract at the club, but he turned it down. So Rangers would be due compensation. So Rangers basically still hold Robbie's registration. So until somebody else buys them, I think they would have to pay a compensation. Unless Rangers allowed them to go for free and they maybe had a sell-on clause in the deal. That's what we were told at the time. Whether that's changed, I'm not 100% sure. But we were told that Robbie was offered a contract, which he turned down. And he obviously made the decision to go elsewhere. But Rangers would be due compensation should he sign for another club. I think there's been talk that he's been at a few clubs. Obviously, it was kind of put out there that he was over in the Netherlands on trial at a particular club. I think there was talk he was on trial at a club in England as well. I don't know what he's doing now, to be honest with you, but yeah, I'm pretty sure Robbie was offered a new deal, but he did turn it down.
And I'm not going to talk about Aaron Lyle because everybody knows my thoughts on Aaron Lyle. And do you know that? Do you know when you sit back and you think and you go, we've brought in so many midfielders, which you're happy about, and then I sit and I do my B team analysis and stuff, and I go, oh, this is just going to be even harder for Aaron to get a chance, because I certainly think he deserves one. But David Christie, what's William's opinions on Thompson Shaka? This isn't going away, William. He seems to have caught the attention of a lot of people, but again, the same point stands. We have brought in so many attackers. We have spent big money on attackers that it's going to make, the likes of Zach Lovelace, Thompson and Shaka's lives a lot harder. But just on Thompson, I've been impressed every time I've seen him.
He's come back in pre-season looking really fit. He seems to have come back with a really good attitude. I think, unfortunately, he picked up a knock prior to the Man City game, I think it was. So I don't know how long he's out for. Hopefully it's not too long. But yeah, he was looking sharp. He was taking players on. He scored a couple of great goals in pre-season as well, some really good goals. And he's one of those guys that you don't know what he's going to do at times, because it's kind of hard to explain with him. Sometimes you watch him, he's a bit like what Fashion Sakala was. Like, he can let the ball roll over his foot and let it run out the pitch, but then the next time he'll take the ball and run by three guys and then smash it in the top corner.
He's far more technical, though, it has to be said. He's very, very technical.
Yeah, I would say so, but I think you're just going to find, like most players who have that kind of ability, you're going to get a level of inconsistency with them.
Yeah.
But certainly Thompson's been good in pre-season, and he's been good in some of the best versus best games.
Scoring a lot of goals as well.
Yeah, look, he's did well. I mean, that's what we say about him. They've actually moved him through the middle now, which allows Zach Lovelace to play off the wing position, which I think is where we get probably we're best from Zach Lovelace. I think sometimes when Zach's playing through the middle, we don't get the same quality from him. So I think sometimes by playing Thompson through the middle, or by playing Josh through the middle, it allows Zach to be more comfortable in the wider positions, which I think has worked really well for him, to be honest.
Yeah, and everybody's asking. Of course they are. About Zach Lovelace. And again, it's even more so than Thompson and Shaka. This won't go away until the day that he either gets a chance in the first team or he moves on. And I'm not going to ask you which is more likely. But Davy's asking.
See if Zach ever leaves Rangers, he won't be short of offers. I think it's common knowledge now that the English clubs have just kept an eye on Zach, and I think if Rangers were to say to Zach, look, you're probably not going to be in the first team, blah blah blah, Zach would have probably 10, 15 offers for English clubs in a heartbeat because of the quality that he's got. I really enjoy watching him play. When he's got the ball at his feet, he's exciting to watch. He's direct, he can score goals, he can commit players. And I think the big thing for Zach is, and there was talk, I think we spoke about it actually at the end of last season, there was talk that maybe this summer he would go out on loan. And there was talk that there were some Premier League clubs were interested in Zach. But that was obviously when Craig Mulholland was still here. Obviously, Craig's left now and Zeb's there. And I don't know if that's changed maybe what they were thinking for Zach. But Zach's a good player. But as I say, it did look as though maybe he tweaked his hamstring against Denhouse-Muir. So he could be out for a period of time. I don't know if the club have...
Is this a recurring issue? And look, just quickly for channel member Davey, he's talking about, McPake banging the goals in. Who's best, McPake or Lovelace? What's Lovelace? Just simply because of the age, which sounds stupid when you're talking about young players. But
Zach's 17 and Josh is 21. See Josh at 17, I thought he was unbelievable. I mean, what Josh could do. I mean, individually, sometimes Josh would tear a team apart. But then again, Josh had great players round about him. He had guys like Kai Kennedy. He had guys like Dapo. He had Matty Yates. You had guys who could really hurt teams at the top end of the pitch. James Maxwell, Kieran Dixon, Murray Muller. I mean, that was an exceptionally strong Rangers team that basically went everywhere in Scotland and won. That team were not used to losing games. They basically, I think I've said it before, I think we went to Hibs training ground one night and went, we won 7-0 or 7-1, and they were absolutely exceptional. Some of the football they played was absolutely brilliant, and I don't know if you'll ever see a better group than what that was, because I think they basically won every other game that season, and they were just incredible to watch.
And just quickly as well, because we're going to come to the SPFL Trust Trophy in a wee second, but just finally on the squad, is Archie Stevens one to watch this year?
Yeah, well, if he can stay fit, I think that's a big thing for Archie. If Archie stays fit, he's a guy that can change games. Last season, he was so unlucky. He got injured playing for the England under-17s when he'd started the under-18 seasons incredibly well. He was basically averaging like a couple of goals a game at that point. He then missed several months of football. He then come back and then I think he had like a skin condition or something like that, or something with his foot. I can't remember exactly what it was. And then he got injured again in the pre-season for the B team. So he's just recently come back into the squad. But yeah, Archie's one of those guys. He's great to watch. See when he's got the ball at his feet, he's taking players on and stuff like that. He's good to watch. See the possibility of somebody like, okay, for instance, James Graham. So if James Graham goes out on loan, that allows Archie to get more kind of game time for the B team. If Robbie Fraser was to go out on loan, it would allow like another left back, like a Jamie Newton, to come in and get more games. So in some ways, allowing some players to go out on loan actually allows the development of some of the players like below them to come in and play. But it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I think, as we pointed out earlier on, the loans aren't always exceptionally good. We've had good loans, and we've had loans that have been diabolical, in all honesty, where the player has basically not got off the bench or they've not even made the squad some weeks. And to me, that's...
for example.
Yeah, look, Tony basically spent a whole year and he hardly played a game of football between Cove and Partick Thistle. That's not ideal for Tony. And like, also, Tony's recently signed for Derby County under-21s along with Charlie Lindsay. So yeah, look, it's tough. Not every loan's been beneficial for the player or for the club, to be perfectly honest with you. But look, that's the nature of football. Not every loan's going to work out, and the club obviously can't basically say, look, when he's out on loan, he's got to play, because most clubs aren't going to agree to that.
No, not at that age.
No, you've got to be in the team based on merit. You've got to be there because you're one of the best 11 players, and that's why you deserve to be in the team. That's why I'm interested to watch Alex. Tonight when the podcast stops, I will sit and watch the Hearts game. Hopefully he gets on and he makes an impact in the game, because that's a good thing for Rangers and for Alex and for Hearts, obviously.
And for Hearts. We've got a question for Timothy just before I come to that very, very quickly.
Yep.
On the SPFL Trust Trophy, 2 games, 2 wins, comfortable over Spartans, and a late winner against Stenhousemuir.
Yeah, the Spartans game was a surprise to me. I thought, we've not had the best record at Spartans the last couple of times we've went there, so to go there and win 3-0. Big shout out to Robbie Fraser. Doesn't really score many goals, so that one was an absolute screamer, absolute top bin. His dad told me to say that, by the way, so if Robbie's dad John's watching, mate, I promised I would give him a shout out for that goal. It was a great finish.
You're not even doing the goal justice. You're not even doing the goal justice.
It was an incredible goal. If anybody's got YouTube, check out the Spartans Rangers game in the SPFL Trust Trophy. What a strike. Then obviously Alex Lowry set up Thompson Ashaka with a lovely wee flick, and then Alex added the third. Stenhousemuir game, yet again, it's a back-to-back away games in the Cup's not easy. Playing on the Astro pitches yet again isn't always perfect, because there's 1 or 2 players that the club don't really like playing on those surfaces.
Zach Lovelace being one.
Yeah, and obviously we've got Greg Allen, who I think is a really good young centre-back, but the club are very protective of Greg because of the Astro, so it's not ideal for us. But yet again, Josh McPake scored a fantastic goal, a real bit of quality, kind of, running by a few players and then smashing it by the goalkeeper from the angle. And then Zach Lovelace, showing that power and that pace again, and then he got a wee bit of luck for the finish. It obviously took a wee deflection or whatever and knocked over the goalie, but 2 really good victories against 2 good teams, and obviously playing Alloa in the next round is going to be really, really difficult.
Yeah, Alloa are at their level, they're a very good team. So yeah, and away again, so is that? In fact, I'll just double check that actually. No, we're at home to Alloa. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know where that game will be. I've had a few people message me so far. I don't know. I wouldn't imagine they'll play it at the training ground. It's on the weekend of the 9th or the 10th. That's what they've got it down as. So as soon as I find out, I'll obviously post it online, or if Rangers post it before I find out, then it'll obviously come out in due time. But we will ask the club what's going on, because I think it's about 3 weeks away now. So it would be interesting to find out where we're going to play. It would be a bit hypocritical to then go and play at Broadwood, given the fact we don't really want some players to play in Astro, but I think it probably is the place that we will play some games if we can't get, say, Partick Thistle, or maybe, well, I know it's not called Lesser Hampden now, but Queen's Park's obviously got a good grass pitch, so potentially that could be used if some type of financial agreement was to come to happen between the two clubs.
And finally, and I should just say, everybody's pointing out in the comments that Hearts are currently 1-0 down. So we might see Alex quicker than we thought. So we shall make this very, very snappy. Timothy Sharp wants to know, when a player is 16, how long a contract can he sign? Is it just 2 years, enabling a player like Rice to leave for just a development fee?
I think what a lot of clubs try and do now is either have a 2-year deal or a 2+1. So you can add the third year, the club can do the third year. A lot of times the players that the club think are exceptional will get the 3 years, basically. For Bailey Rice, I would imagine the club would want to sit down with Bailey again at some point this season. Because at the end of the day, like, obviously when the club signed him, he was an under-18 player. And that's where he started that season. But then I think it was either the day that we played Liverpool that he turned 16, or the day before the game. So, like, the moment he was 16, he played in the UEFA Youth League against Liverpool. And Bailey's obviously just been on the bigger since then, isn't he? He's obviously played for the first team a couple of times, and I wouldn't be surprised if Bailey was part of the squad this weekend.
I'd be amazed, William, if he doesn't start for the first team on Saturday. I'd be amazed.
I think it's interesting with Bailey. I'm not a football scout. I'm not somebody that is paid to have like opinions on players or anything like that. But there's just some players that come in and automatically stand out, and Bailey is that player. I think even that time he came on against Livingston for that wee small salvo, people were excited to watch Bailey play.
Has he got, and I don't like to use this comparison, and I know that I've said about 18 times now we're going to finish, right? But has he got that kind of Gilmore about him? I don't mean the same type of player. I just mean the height.
I think he's got that level of arrogance, if you know what I mean, that he knows he's good.
Football arrogance.
Yeah, and I think he knows he's a good player. And I think his belief in his abilities there. It's interesting with Bailey. I mean, obviously he took that knock against Stenhousemuir. It sounds like he's okay, that he could be available for the weekend. So if that's the case, that's great news. I think at the very worst, I would like to see him on the bench. And if things are going well against Morton, let's give him 20 or 30 minutes. Because he's a quality player. He's somebody that is he's so comfortable on the ball. That's the scary thing for me. I'm talking about a 16-year-old kid that goes on a pitch that is probably mainly full of men in their 20s, some in their 30s, but he sometimes looks like the best player on the pitch as a 16-year-old. I mean, that shouldn't really be possible for somebody to be that good at that age. He's got an unbelievable range of passing. The one thing that really annoys me, and I actually said this to his dad recently, is I would like to see him score more goals. Because see when he's at the edge of the box, 20, 25 yards out, see the way that he hits a ball. Like, he doesn't need to hit it hard. He just hits it clean. And see when he hits the ball, like, I don't know, you see, like, the movement of the ball, it's great. I mean, I think it was a goal against Burnley that he scored that was an incredible finish. And he's got the ability to do that. I know Rangers would utilise him probably more as a 6, but I just think this kid, I think he's 17 in October or something like that. I think within the next year and a half, he's going to be really pushing hard for that first team. And I don't see why he shouldn't be.
If not even by the end of this season.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, look, I think in Bailey's mind, he probably feels like he should be there. And I don't have a problem with that. I think every young player should feel like they should be there. Why should you not believe that? See if you are a professionally played footballer and you're on the pitch and you're playing well and you're standing out at any level, why would you not want to make the step up? Bailey's went from playing under 16s, under 18s, playing for the B team, playing in the UEFA Youth League and playing for the first team, basically all within a year. I mean, that's how far that kid's came from when he first signed. to where he is now. And there's people out there that think that Bailey should be in and around the squad every single game. And it's hard to argue with that. But he's going to learn in training. He's going to learn from Raskin. He's going to learn from Cantwell. He'll learn from Jack, from Cifuentes. And these are all beneficial things to his game. And as long as people remember that he's only 16 and Zach Lovelace is only 17 and so is Archie Stevens, the future is bright. There's a lot of talented young footballers there. And as I say, the current under-18s are great to watch. I think we've got some exceptionally talented players in that group. Guys like Jack Wiley were obviously sought after by English clubs. So was Callum Adamson by all accounts. Yeah, I think Chris Eddy's on something ridiculous, like 16 goals already this season. I think, we've not had a chance to see the two Northern Irish lads yet, Blaine McClure and Callum Burnside, but once they're in, I think that'll be another really exciting thing for the club. And yeah, look, I think there's a lot of positivity, but at the end of the day, Rangers are probably expecting to win the 18s league because that's the kind of mentality that we should have at the football club. The B team shouldn't show any fear against any English teams, even though last season when we played Chelsea at the training ground, I thought Chelsea were exceptional. We just weren't at that level. But then you see like the lad Lewis Hall today has been linked with a £35 million move to Newcastle, and I'm pretty sure he played in that game. So yeah, look, I think it's great. The best versus best games have been good, but we can really only judge at the end of the season with how many players have pushed on, how many players have developed, and has the cost of doing the best versus best games worked out as the best thing for the football club. That will only be judged at the end of this season when we'll look back and think, yeah, look, that's Zach Lovelace. He's moved up a level. Bailey Rice has moved up a level. If the under-18s were to go on and win the 18s league, it's been an unbelievable season for a squad mainly filled with under-16 players who had moved up. So, I mean, to me, all of those things are good. And that's how it's got to be. At Rangers, there's always going to be expectation. It's never going to disappear. And, even speaking to like some of the parents that under 18s, of course there's expectation you're at Rangers. And that's just how it is. And hopefully, depending on how we got on against Morton, if we maybe get another fortunate tie in the next round against, kind of lower league opposition, who knows, maybe there's another chance for some of the lads to come on and maybe get some minutes off the bench.
Well, yeah. We'll just need to make sure that we've got the right person doing the draw and we've got the hot board. So we can get that. So we can get that tie that we want. William, that's been just about an hour, my friend. It's
crazy, isn't it?
It's unbelievable, isn't it? And there's still so much more we could talk about. We just don't have the time.
No, look, I mean, unfortunately, I'm kind of quite busy with things at the moment, but the more time that opens up, we will try and do more academy pods. We'll try and maybe do a loan pod, talking about Alex, maybe talking about Ben Williamson, talking about Jacob Pazikis and any other players that go out on loan, maybe do like a loan review type thing. Well, obviously, I mean, like as Martin said, we're going to put the link in the description. So if anybody wants to check out the WordPress, if not, if you go on to Twitter and go to RFC Youth Updates, I've normally got the WordPress just at the top of the page as well if you want to check that out. And that's where I try and put all the information that we get. There is a rough fixture list for the under-18, so people should be able to check that out. However, as Martin's well aware, the under-18 fixtures move all over the place. But there is a rough schedule of when the 18s games are. When it comes to the B team, I'm always trying to message the club, basically. I mean, there's probably some people at the club that absolutely detest me, the amount of emails that I send.
Just people in general.
That's a fair point. I mean, in fact, I think some lady actually said that to me at the Dundee United game when I was standing at his training ground. She said that her husband forces her to watch the academy reviews. And I felt kind of bad. So
Did she also say I'm missing them because I missed the handsome one? I think she said that.
I think she was talking about you, though. I don't think it was me she was talking about.
Anyways, yes. Listen, guys, thank you everybody for tuning in. If you haven't already, please do give the video a like and make sure you're subscribed to the Rangers Rabble YouTube channel. As you know, guys, Monday and a Friday's the phone in. Moving forward, either a Wednesday or a Thursday night will be Rabble Extra live on YouTube. And depending on whether there's a game on a Sunday or not, if the game's on a Saturday, you will have Rabble Sundays on YouTube as well. All live, all free. All you need to do is, you don't even have to subscribe, but it would be handy if you did. So, William, thank you very much for joining me.
No, it's been great. Just want to thank everybody for all the comments tonight. It's been amazing. I think this is maybe the most comments we've had in quite a while. So if anybody wants to know anything, just drop me a message on Twitter. I'm always happy to kind of interact when I can. I'm not always sitting on the laptop or my phone, but if there is a question that I can obviously answer, I will. And I say, as soon as I get any of the fixtures for the B team, I will add them to the WordPress, and I'll try to add any links. Obviously, this tournament over in the Netherlands that starts tomorrow, we're trying to find out if there is a link to watch the games. If there is, I'll post that on Twitter tomorrow, because we're due to play Anderlecht, Utrecht, and what's the other team? Red Bull Bragantino or something like that. I think they're Brazilian.
Excellent pronunciation, by the way.
I thought so. Absolutely tremendous. So if I find the link for the games, I'll post it on Twitter so people can watch them over the next 2 or 3 days. I have asked the club for that, but I don't think I've had any response from, because I know the chance to check my emails for a couple of hours. But if I do get that link, I will post it tomorrow. So check out our RFC Youth Updates, and if I get that, I'll post it online for you guys to watch the games if you're available.
Superb. So thank you, William. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you for everybody for commenting, liking it as well, and subscribing. And yeah, we'll speak to you all very, very soon.